All right, Mr. Bunch. So I kindly requested that we do this from your garden. So obviously we've got your garden in the background, and I'm sure that's going to come into our conversation here. But welcome. This is episode number 5 of Faces of First Atlanta. Mr. Bunch, why don't you introduce yourself?
Awesome. Well, I'm super glad to be here. My name is Michael Bunch. I've been with First Atlanta for 18 years this year, and continue to love it, and can't imagine being anywhere else.
There's got to be a picture somewhere of you 18 years ago around here. I'll go dig that up for another time.
I do have the business card from my previous company, so I can send you that headshot.
That'll be awesome. We won't post it too much, but anyway, so I think everybody's kind of caught on. I really, this is about you. I want to hear your story, who Michael Bunch is. I want to hear about your real estate journey, and we want to learn from you. So kind of take me back. Who's Michael Bunch?
So it's interesting you mentioned my garden.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, and the word garden had a much different meaning than what you're probably talking about, because it was working behind a tiller, doing stuff that I didn't want to do when my mom and dad wanted to have a garden in our backyard, which was squash and okra and beans and tomatoes, and hot and sweaty and prickly. And so even though I grew up in an area that was like cotton was king,
yeah,
I didn't really enjoy, I'm not a farmer other than real estate farming. And, so having a backyard with like flowers and fun stuff in it is, it's a different definition of gardening. Sure. But yeah, grew up in the Mississippi Delta.
Where's
got
that?
out, in a small town called Greenwood.
Okay.
The claim to fame it was the corporate headquarters for the Viking Range Corporation.
Yeah.
Because the guy who created that was from Greenwood. So it probably saved my town when other businesses went out of business and had empty manufacturing facilities. Viking began taking over them and really revitalized a lot of the areas. So, neat impact on where I grew up. But I got out of Mississippi actually a week before I graduated and moved to Atlanta, and started to work for a developer as a young civil engineer, or a young man with a civil engineering degree.
Yeah. So you, where'd you go to school?
Went to Mississippi State.
Okay.
Third generation civil engineer. Didn't really give a whole lot of thought to it. Tested well in math and sciences, and didn't even think about my degree. It was just, you're going to be you're going to do what your dad did. That's what I did.
I love it. Okay, so then you moved to Atlanta, to the big city, right?
Saw him and my granddad work together, and didn't really think that was the future that I wanted, because it's just hard being in business for yourself, and you don't always see things differently. So the goal was to move away, get some other job experience for 5 or so years, and then come back and take over the family business. And at some point, probably 10 years in, I just said, Dad, I'm a city mouse, not a country mouse, and I'm probably not coming back. And so they ended up selling it to Mississippi Materials, and I stayed here.
Awesome. So I won't ask you what year, because that'll date you and everything, but you've been in Atlanta quite a while, right?
Yeah, I moved here in '84.
Oh, there you go.
Long time ago.
So did you start out in engineering, or?
Well, I got the gift of being in a project planning management role for the developer. And so I got to actually review and critique engineers' work and redline plans, and then send them back. And they had to work over the weekend, and I could be off. That company ultimately went out of business, and I had the humbling opportunity of actually getting in the trenches, going back and getting my professional engineer's license as a civil engineer. And then I was doing that work that I started out supervising. So
right.
Kind of a flip-flop there. And then was doing that when, after a few years of prayer and just soul searching, got into real estate in '95, coming out of working as a consulting engineer then.
Yeah. So you've been in real estate, what, 26 years?
25.
25, yeah. Perfect. So it's changed a little bit over 25 years. We interviewed Donna Bunch earlier, and
Oh,
so
Donna
we got,
McClure.
yeah,
Yeah,
Donna McClure, sorry. And
that's right.
Donna Bunch, I mix you. Donna McClure, and the perspective you guys have over that lifespan of being in the business is just phenomenal to be able to pick your brain, right? And in all these ups and downs as you've ridden the wave through your career, right?
Yeah, I definitely wish I had started earlier, because at the company that I was with, we had land reps who were on the real estate side who were making a lot more money and had a lot more opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that, I get frustrated some days with parts of what we do, but I'm reminded more often than not of the amazing opportunity that we have. So,
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things about real estate as an industry is we all kind of bring a melting pot, a hodgepodge of background to the table, right? So yours happened to be civil engineering, right? So
yeah,
how
and I
did
don't
that?
know that I'm the best suited for what we do, because I end up being a numbers nerd. I dive into statistics, and there's just is a friendly, more outgoing part of what we do, and probably a major part of what we do, which is why high D's and high I's thrive as mega agents and lead agents. So some of it, and I'm more reserved. So it's a bit of catch up on that side of it.
Yeah, but
So
Michael,
yeah,
I'm gonna challenge what you're saying here for a minute, because you are very successful. You've ridden the wave of your real estate journey, and you've proven over the test of time that no matter what background you bring to the table, you can find your pathway to thrive. You can find your pathway to success, and you've done that. And so, what do you see from the civil engineering background? How did that help you with your success in real estate?
well, I think for the people that want their agent to be detail oriented and to have systems, and I had a closing on Tuesday, and their comment was, "Wow, this has been so smooth." And it's like, that's one of the highest compliments that I can get, because behind the curtain, we're slaying dragons and anticipating pitfalls and all of that, and hopefully ironing all of that out before our client ever feels it. And so that was huge for me. A lot of my clients stay put for about double the national average. And so that's a high compliment. We make good decisions, and those decisions last, and they don't get frustrated or need to move as often, which has a counter side to that of I have to hunt for new clients more often, but the clients that we have are super satisfied. And so, yeah, I lose sight, because we have a bunch of really talented agents in our office. And, when you run with that crowd, it's easy to start playing the comparison game and not realize that I've qualified for the ALC for 18 straight years. And I don't mean to take that for granted, because that's a higher level of business than most agents ever achieve. And yet, there's still things that I want to accomplish and improvements that I want to make. And so, anyway, it's just,
No, I love that perspective. In a leadership role, of course, we're putting the best of the best on stage and all that stuff. But you wake up one day and you realize, hey, sometimes the best of the best get so great that it's hard for everybody to relate to them. And it's not that you want to not highlight the best of the best, because we do, but there's different levels of success, right? One of the things Gary Keller's been talking about recently is the difference between somebody that has a great practice and somebody that has a great business, right? So if you look at an attorney that goes to court and litigates cases, right? Well, they're the product, and they can build a great practice around them, but at the end of the day, you can't remove the litigator out of the courtroom, or you
right.
can't remove the surgeon out of the the surgery room. Well, I think you're a great example of somebody that's built a great practice around you as the product of real estate, and your knowledge and your attention to detail and your systems is very strong in your value proposition, why people do business with you.
Sure. And that is, could far exceed a lot of people's dreams with regards to the income part of that. I think you talk about the leaders, it's easy for somebody to come on stage or to be on this call with a level of success, but we all have got to balance that with our personal lives and with our goals and figure out how to grow. And you have to be around people that are leveraging things out and staying in their lane with regards to their strengths, and ultimately on a path that will give you some breathing room so you don't just burn out. Because we see flares, which somebody will just be on this huge growth curve, and then something will happen in their personal life and they just end up totally unraveling. Right. And so part of that is, yes, are you on a steady path to have a career worth having, life worth living and business worth owning? And we're at least having that conversation inside the ALC for sure, and hopefully continually inside the market center. Yeah. But it doesn't mean you're not immune to all of the personal stuff that everybody else struggles with. So,
we put, I always talk about this. We put people on stage, right? And they're great. And we look at them and we go, wow, they're awesome. But part of the motivation behind these interviews is if you just look at somebody when they've already made it and they're on stage, they look really pretty, right? But you don't know the trials and tribulations they took along the way to get there, right? And that's part of my questions in these interviews. It's like, hey, where did you have great success along your journey, and where did you stumble? Let us in on a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite Gary quotes was, a lot of people want to have what I have, but very few people are willing to go through what I had to go through to get there. And I just love first season of Think Like a CEO, because that goes through all of the shots that he took, both business-wise and personally, in his early years, in his 20s, with relationships that blew up on him, and he had to recover from that, and they had financial consequences. So, my career was probably pretty steady. My best year was 2017, and that was, it's like, yeah, I'm an instant success after 20 years. Yeah. Well, it was a timing and a lot of big, good deals happening throughout that year. And then 2019, a lot of personal stuff, and that was a super hard year, took a lot out of me. And then this year, I'm kind of rebounding out of that. So it ebbs and flows, and sometimes you're down and sometimes you're depressed, and you just get beat up, and you need some time to kind of recover. And then sometimes you're playing the hot hand and things are rolling, and the people that you have in your life who are your clients happen to be the market of the moment. And am I back?
You're
Sorry,
back.
I had a call come in.
25-year picture, by the way. It was a modern picture.
Oh yeah. So so life ebbs and flows, and you got to keep leaning in. I'm just doggedly persistent and hard-headed, and I just refuse. At least during COVID, it's like, I got to do what I can. I got to do what I can and be as visible as I can and care as much as I can and be as safe as I can. And it's just going to have to work out if I focus on the activities, control what you can control.
Yeah. I was talking this week. It almost looks like, and I'm not going to call this play yet, but it almost looks like we went into a economic situation, and there's a real possibility the end of 2020 from a real estate sales perspective might finish equal or even greater than what 2019 was, which already was a great year, right? So yeah. It's all in perspective in your business and perspective in the market. You know that when you do stats, right? You can't.
I think the composition of the numbers will be different, but I think the overalls could end up being better because of the surge of the under 600 property transactions.
Got it. What disciplines have you created over the years that you would attribute your success to?
Work ethic was probably the only underlying discipline of just waking up, being as positive as I could, and refusing to quit. That's another quote that Gary says: the only way you guarantee failure is to just quit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you still got a chance and you're still on the hunt. I don't consider myself a very disciplined person, so my schedule is bouncing all around. Only in the last 25 days has it begun to fall into place, and have I started, sorry, this is a confession that's blasphemy, started using a 411 to actually be purposeful at the beginning of my day.
Good.
Otherwise, it's something that I felt like I had to do because it was part of Keller Williams lore. And I was really somewhat of a failure for not having that be a part of my life and practice.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, but you have to understand how to get started with it and not jump in full force with everything on it, because it'll crush you. And that's what it did. So there's no remarkable disciplines. There's just stubborn, hard-headed, I'm going to get up and I'm going to give it my all. And I trample boundaries, and my family pays consequences for that I'm still kind of processing through. And yet, as long as you don't let that glass ball drop, which Gary talks about as well, you got balls in the air. Some of them are glass and some of them are rubber. By God's grace, I'm still married. My kids are still relatively okay, as normal as the bunches can ever be. And having some structure is life-giving. So yeah, working on priorities. The one thing stuff, I don't know why it took me, as long as it has, to get a grip on that. But right now it's doggone remarkable. So I am enjoying real estate more today than perhaps I ever had, because of kind of getting some priorities in line. So.
Good. One conversation we had recently, if you're comfortable, I'd love to bring everybody else in on, is kind of making your real estate business, incorporating your personality into your real estate business, and bringing that kind of, merging those two worlds together, which is, if you're good going there, why don't you share with us what we talked about?
Yeah, I think even back to the creation of the LLC and the Bunch Real Estate Group, I never really wanted it to be about me, because like you said earlier, I wanted to be able to get out of it, and for it not to be everything about Michael Bunch, but have kind of people fall in love with our systems and our service delivery, rather than it have to relate on me. What I didn't get was that separation and that cold kind of non-entity-ness. People were not relating to me. And even though I may have thought I had the better mousetrap and the better stats and the better systems, there was not anybody there to like and enjoy being around and doing business with, because I kept my distance. Well, finally, after wrestling through 33 touch programs and trying to adopt everybody else's stuff and being this synthetic Terminator, whatever I was trying to be, I just collapsed out of exhaustion and said, you know what, there's got to be a way to have fun at this business. And I remember last year at family reunion, or maybe this year, anyway, the slide was fall back in love with real estate. So I did.
For the love of real estate. For the love of real estate.
And so it was like, wow. So then I just maybe had the courage to just start being me, and doggone it, whoever likes me will do business. And if you don't like who I am, you'll do business with somebody else. And just kind of making peace with the fact that whoever I am, right, wrong, or indifferent, is going to be enough. If I'll just sell out to it, be genuine, be nice, be caring, love on people, have fun, they'll want to go along on the journey. So it evolves into, what do I love? This spring, it happened to be just hanging out on my backyard more than I really ever have. And the satisfaction of making things more beautiful. I love order. So my blower is my favorite tool. And my favorite 2 days of the month is when the lawn crew comes and they cut everything and it's tight and edged and
No
the
leak.
chaos is gone. It's
Yeah.
just beautiful. I mean, I cut grass growing up, so it was instant gratification, and it was the smell of freshly cut grass. So gardening is something that my wife and I enjoy. Coffee, something my wife and I enjoy. Photography, something that I really, really enjoy. And I have this phone that I bought prior to Thanksgiving last year because I wanted to make sure I had the best pictures possible of my parents because they're in their 80s and they're not going to be around forever. So, yeah, I began to kind of settle into my passions and started sharing that more on social media and having it be more personal. So, I think that's what you were getting at.
It is. And it's like you brought Michael back into the business in a sense, right?
Yeah, we woke Michael up because he was soldiering on, not super happy, but delivering great service and just on the inside getting terrible gas mileage and burning out.
Yeah, I gotcha. So I love it. I think people can relate. You're real. People can relate to your story. You know, we went through a long time evolution in Keller Williams about everything was about the team, right? And build a big team, and that's still the right path for a lot of people, but it's not the right path for all people. And this
And it's
concept,
easy. No, keep going. It just is easy if you know, I know Gary says fail your way forward, but failing feels terrible, or it feels terrible for me. I don't enjoy it, and I can say it, but living it and feeling it in the pit in the bottom of your stomach when things don't go right. So it's easy if you are working to build a team and it's not coming together, or you get into business with people that are the wrong people or the wrong people for you, not a good fit, and you have to unwind out of those relationships. It's painful. And so, you know, I'm thrilled for people that are able to put teams together. And I long for that so that we can deliver better service. But I also know that I'm going to stay where I am instead of getting in business with the wrong people again, because that is just not worth it. So I'm holding out for the right people at the right time.
I love it.
And I'm telling myself that it's not a failure because I still have a great business. I would just like for it to grow at some point.
Yeah.
So sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine, but failure is only final if you quit, right?
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So here's my favorite question is if you were going to write a book or deliver us a TED Talk, what would your subject matter be? What would we learn from Michael Bunch?
So it's interesting. TEDx Atlanta was last Friday, and it was virtual. Last year I went to it in person and loved it, have thought a lot about, have dreamed about giving a TED Talk.
Really?
I think today, whether it's a book or it's a TED Talk that grows into a book, it would be fighting my way out of my own wet paper bag. And maybe there's a shorter title for that, but that's the imagery that I think of. Is it should be so easy, yet when you're caught in it, you need help, you need perspective, you need the one thing conversation. That's the quote that for the last 3 weeks, it's like you can't see the label on the box if you're inside the box.
Yeah.
So we all need a buddy. We really do need each other to kind of reflect back where we want to go and what we want, and help each other process through our thoughts and dreams. So the TED Talk would be about that, and the book would be about that. And I guess in my journals, I am writing that. And I have to believe there are other people out there that have similar struggles and need to believe that whatever they have is indeed enough if they would just settle into who God created them to be with gusto. And people will be attracted to it because they'll be passionate about it.
Awesome. Michael, you're an outstanding individual, an outstanding businessman. I can't thank you enough for the time today. And I know a lot of people got a lot out of this. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, you want to see one thing real quick?
Yeah.
So there's an interesting elephant ear called coffee cups. And even though a lot of elephant ears have these huge, huge leaves, and I've got some of those, This one has cups that curl up. I don't know if you can see it.
I can.
And they catch rainwater, and that's one of the ways that they get what they need. So, there it is. So
Oh, wow.
anyway, little fun tidbit from the garden.
There
Sorry
you
about
go. Thank you, Michael. Have a good one.
that. Sure. All right, take care.